Hey, Team Brantford, this is Steve Babcock, Manager of Corporate Initiatives, and this is the Brantford Sessions. I am chatting today with Sara Monroe about two of my favorite topics, failure and change management. Sara's got some great life lessons that I'm excited to share with you and some excellent tips that I think everyone's going to benefit from, so I hope you enjoy.
I'm a big fan of failure, as you know. I fail a lot. It's just kind of what I do and how I learn, I guess. But I'm hoping that you can talk about perhaps a failure that you've experienced and how you dealt with that.
Yeah, this one was fairly recent. So I've never really had formal management training. So I have done kind of the courses, but you don't have those skills as if you're actually in the job.
Mhm.
Um, it's very, very different watching someone talk about it on the screen than actually having to deal with it. And especially when you're in a global pandemic, that changes priorities and emotions are all over the place. So my biggest failure was not taking the time to understand and have serious discussions with my team about their mental health and about my expectations. So we were having regular check-ins, but that's so different from face-to-face. Again, we're such a small team that that face-to-face component's been so important. It's easy to hide how you're feeling behind a phone and a computer screen. And I'm a very, very practical person, very policy driven. So I don't have that empathetic kind of instinct all the time. I really have to think about it. Um, and as a new leader too, these were all things that kind of culminated together to kind of imply my support, but I needed to formalize it. So when I noticed that I hadn't had those discussions, and when I did ultimately have those discussions, I felt like a real failure as a leader, that I wasn't there, that I wasn't proactively having those chats with my team. I wasn't telling them what my expectations were and that I understood all of their own personal circumstances. And there was room for flexibility because there absolutely was. But how would you know that from your supervisor if they didn't tell you that? So that was a really big failure for me that I'm still not proud of.
That is that's a tough one. Like that's not something that you learn in leadership training. That whole empathy piece is you like I am exactly the same as you. Sometimes I can be incredibly empathetic and sometimes it goes the obvious signs go right over my head. And so I am very guilty of that one as well. So yeah, that's a really tough one for sure, especially as a new leader. That's not something that you can. So like when I think about where my leadership skills came from, a lot of it came from mirroring my manager and my leader, right? Like that's as a new leader, that's what you do. You look to what um, the experiences you've had when it comes to leadership. And that's not something that you can really mirror very well because it's not really a traditional leadership skill. So yeah, that's a good one. So what's your learning from that? What have you taken away from that one?
Well, I think I need to be just generally more open about communicating my expectations. So there's just like the little things that you can do now. If you send something to someone and you need them to review it, just say, I don't need this right now. End of next week is fine. Because people want to please, right? Like people want to do well, they want to do their job. They want to make their supervisor proud. They want to be proud of their own work. So um, my instinct is to drop everything and do whatever my supervisor needs. And I need to make those expectations clear. And you're right, I need to lean on the leaders that I want to be like. So what started this discussion was having a phone call with one of my peers who I really respect, whose leadership style I strive to have as well. So when they were able to give me some pointers, I could activate right away. Trusting my instincts and not really waiting for direction in some cases. As a leader, you kind of just have to, your team best, so you can identify where there's some additional help and support needed. And then I think recognizing my own weaknesses and communicating those weaknesses. So I think it's important for all of my team members and the people who lead me as well to know where I am insecure about certain areas of my leadership style, or where I don't know what I'm doing. Just to tell someone, you don't know what you're doing, but let's try to do it together. I think that's a great message as well. Like, and helps to open the door to more difficult conversations in the future. Hopefully, I mean, I learned from the experience that I need to get past my own feelings of being awkward and just have those conversations.
That is such a great message. I completely agree with you. I can't imagine how you could possibly handle something like that better, like reaching out to a mentor and getting advice on that, and having the self-awareness to recognize where your weaknesses are, and having the confidence to be able to like explore that. That is, like, to me, that is the sign of an absolute true leader. Like that, you can't play that any better. Like that's really amazing. I'm really impressed, actually. So yeah, I think that's just a great example for just for everyone. Like everyone's going to come across those failures, and it's about how we deal with them and how we manage with them. That's the best part of it, right? So you and I have also bonded recently over our passion for change. You're a bit of a change advocate. So, and we've gone through an immense amount of change. Obviously, I mean, we're always going through change, but it just seems like change is on steroids over the last year. What are some of the strategies that you use to manage change?
Well, I should preface this by saying I'm naturally a very change positive person.
Yes, you are.
So this does not come naturally for a lot of people. I've moved since I was 18. I've moved about 24 times. Wow. I think. Because I was always looking for new opportunities and some kind of new living situation. I wanted to have roommates, then I wanted to live at home, then I wanted to live on my own. I was the typical millennial that stayed in a job for 2 years at a time and then moved somewhere else. So now my family and friends know that if I don't love something enough to move it, I'm never going to buy it, because I'm so used to that upheaval. But I think in the workplace, change like 99% of the time is not personal. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. And you have to know that sometimes you have your babies, right? You have those projects and those procedures that you love, that are very near and dear to your heart, that you believe in, but they can't be too precious. Because things are out of your control a lot of the time. And if you have those things that you can't give up, that's going to make change a lot harder. So yes, you should be like personally connected to your projects, but not at the point where you will pull back on them when someone tries to take them away. So that would be my first tip. Don't treat your work as if it's too precious. It's not a family heirloom. Trust your gut, for sure. I've learned a lot, at least in the last 5 years, that my gut is always, always right. So that feeling of unease is not your gut telling you that it's bad. It's just your gut telling you that it's something different. So definitely trust your gut and try to stay calm from a leadership perspective. I try to stay calm throughout it. So I'll acknowledge my own frustrations for sure. I will say where I don't personally think that things make sense, but try to stay calm throughout it, because especially for change adverse teammates, that sense of calm and that structure is something that people who are change adverse really, really need you to be. And then just communicate openly. So again, sometimes I don't know what I'm doing either. I don't know why the change is coming, and just acknowledging that you're lost too, and that hopefully we can figure out things together is a good message to have.
That is amazing. And I there's absolutely no way I could have said it as well as you just said it. I think those are some pretty amazing tips. And we are very similar in that way that I don't think I've ever held a job for more than 3 years. Like I just I'm also a change advocate. I love change, and I love your messaging around not getting too attached. Like I'm fairly passionate about the work that I do, but you're right about that. Once you get that level of attachment that that you can't get away from, you can't, you lose the perspective. Like you don't have the ability to change anymore, because you're too connected to that work. So I love that messaging. But yeah, I've never been able to just stay with one job for an extended period of time, because I just like I just feel like there's too much in the world to see and do, and we only get to work for so long, and then we go off and enjoy retirement. So while I'm here, I might as well try to see and accomplish as much as I can, right? So I
have to keep things exciting, and life is too short. So for me, I've had the opportunity to move throughout the corporation, which is awesome. And I have the flexibility in my position now that I can kind of pick and choose the projects that I want to work on. And some things are for sure delegated to me, but I'm able to then delegate other projects to team members. Or we just took on culinary tourism as a brand new market last year, just because I love food and because it's like the low hanging fruit kind of market. So
yeah,
there's enough flexibility sometimes in the jobs that you have that you can find that change within your own position too. And I'm always trying to communicate that to my team members as well, just as a retention strategy, because I want to keep the team that we have now. It's an awesome team. But if there's opportunities that you want to work on, if there's education that would help you build as a person, if there's projects that seem really cool that aren't the perfect fit for your portfolio, but you could work together with someone, I'm a huge advocate for absolutely going forward and doing that, because you need to keep things interesting. And the worst thing that you can do, especially in a government service, is to become complacent and to do the same thing day in and day out. We need to keep things exciting. And I hope that that means retention in the long run.
So first of all, am I the only one who thinks that Sara should be running her own leadership seminar? That was a lot of really great information, and I have many light bulb moments from this episode, but I'm going to focus on setting and communicating expectations. We're all guilty of this. Personally, I know that I have a lot of room to grow in this area. And I'll just tell you a very quick story. So when I first started with the city, it was an absolute whirlwind, and I sputtered big time for the first month. I'm sure Brian was probably thinking that he had just made the biggest recruitment blunder of his career. But what really brought me out of my initial downward spiral was Brian taking the time to set expectations and discuss priorities. And I remember that conversation like it was yesterday, because it really helped me realize what I needed to do in order to be successful in my role. I'm so grateful for Sara for sharing her journey, and I really hope that all aspiring and current leaders were paying close attention to this episode. Sara just, she impresses me as a human being, but I'm specifically impressed with just her level of self-awareness and her honesty and her ability to take her imperfections and learn and grow from them. So thank you for watching this episode of the Brantford Sessions, and I hope you will stay tuned for future episodes.